Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rebecca, otherwise known as Hypnot Online, and this is podcast episode number 9. So this is actually the second time I'm filming this introduction. For some reason I pressed record and I had this weird feeling at the back of my head that something wasn't right. And so I stopped recording and I realized that I was filming in slow-mo. So thank goodness I had that weird feeling at the back of my mind and I ended up checking my phone, because otherwise I would have filmed this episode all in slow-mo and I would have been very upset. So I'm refilming the introduction, but yes, this is podcast episode number 9, where I'm going to be sharing one finished object. I have quite a few whips, or at least for my standards or how comfortable I am with the number of whips, it's quite a few, but that's because I cast on quite a few of my spring knitting plans, so it was more out of excitement why I casted on so many of them. I also have one test knit as well, so it's kind of a me issue that I have so many whips, but it's okay, we're going to get through them and I'm really excited about all of them. And I also have one acquisition to share at the end, which I am really excited about as well, and I would love to share because I want to hear your advice on the acquisition. So let's get started with the finished object. So I have my blouse number 1 light here. I finished it a few days ago, and because it is one strand of mohair, I blocked it in the evening and I laid it out, and within, I would say, about 3 hours, the project had completely dried up already, so that was great. I'm really excited. I'm going out tonight for a friend's birthday and I think I'm gonna wear this, so I'm very excited. I haven't worn it yet. It's fresh off the blocking mats. So for this project, I used Knit Picks Aloft in the shade Koi, which is a fiery red-orange, and I'm holding some of the leftovers up because, yeah, I have leftovers from this project, which I wasn't expecting to have at the end based off of the meterage requirements, but because we can get into that later. So Knit Picks Koi is, I would say, a bit of a thinner mohair. There's more meterage for every 25 grams than the average mohair skein, so this has 237 meters for every 50 grams. And I had some leftovers from an Oslo hat that I knit, and so during the Knit Pick semi-annual sale, I got 2 more balls, thinking that that would be around like 530 meters if I'm doing the math correctly. And at the time I had planned to do the aura top, so I would have had enough, but as you know, I didn't end up doing the aura top, and so I was a bit worried because the blouse number 1 requires a little bit more meterage, especially because I sized up, but I ended up having a lot left over, so that was good. But also now I have the same amount of leftovers that I did in the first place, so this will be going into my scrap bin. But in terms of project costs, so I would say I used about 2 balls of yarn for this project, and when I had purchased this mohair, it was during that sale, so I got them for about $5 US, or about $7 Canadian. So in total, this project cost me about $14 to make. It was a pretty quick knit, but I would say that that's quite affordable and economical for a really nice statement piece like this. So maybe we can get into the project specs. So the blouse number 1 light is a top-down boat neck blouse, and it is constructed with a contiguous sleeve and slight saddle shoulder. And I really enjoyed the construction. As you know, because I thought I was going to be playing a game of yarn chicken, I really wanted to knit a pattern that was top down, and this pattern really fit the bill. For this pattern, you're supposed to use 2 strands of mohair held together on 6mm needles, but I just held 1 strand of mohair on, again, still 6mm needles, and I really like the finished fabric. I knit this with 1 wooden needle on my right side and then 1 metal needle on my left side, because the pattern specifically recommends that you use metal needles working with mohair. I found that it was a little bit too slippery, and also the metal needles were really weighing down on the mohair, so I found that it was kind of affecting my tension while I was knitting. So I feel like you can kind of see, or maybe you might not be able to, but some of the stitches are a little uneven on this, and it doesn't really bother me. I kind of just have accepted that it is the nature of just knitting with one strand of mohair, and I feel like because it's such a bright, bold shade, I feel like you just don't really pay attention to that. So yeah, I'm really excited for this piece. I did make a few modifications to this blouse. So the first modification is I sized up in the pattern. So the blouse number 1 light is intended to have 2 to 5 centimeters of negative ease, but I wanted something with a little bit more positive ease and that would fit more relaxed. So I sized up 2 sizes to knit a size medium, which has a finished bust of 89 centimeters. So it would have approximately 6 centimeters of positive ease on me. So I sized up there. I then followed the cast on stitch counts as well as the instructions for the saddle shoulder and the contiguous set-in sleeve exactly to pattern for the size medium. And then after that, once I split for the body and the sleeves, I didn't really follow the pattern at that point, and I was kind of just knitting to the length that I wanted. And I did also a different set of decreases for the sleeve. So the body, I wanted it to fit quite long. I usually like to crop a lot of my pieces, but for this one, I was really trying to model it off of the Rose Knitwear Aura top, which falls, I would say, around the hip area. And so I knit the body of this to fall around there on my height, but I didn't reference the length that you had to knit it to in blouse number 1 light, so I don't know if it's the same length. I was just kind of going off of vibes and how I was feeling when I was trying this on. So yeah, I don't know if that was the accurate length, but I'm really happy with the length. In terms of the sleeves, again, I didn't follow the sleeve decrease rates for blouse number 1. I also don't really know what they are. I was kind of just using blouse number 1. It was very helpful, but for the yoke, and then after that, I just did my own thing. So I did decreases every 7 rounds, and in blouse number 1 light, and also I think the original blouse number 1 as well, there's a slight bell increase to the sleeves at the bottom, and that's done by knitting a few increases just before you finish off the sleeve. But I didn't really want to do that, so I just continued my decrease rate, which was every 7 stitches. I decreased by 2 stitches, and I just continued that all the way down the sleeve until it was a length that I was happy with. So there is a slight taper to this sleeve. It's still pretty relaxed, I would say, around my wrist, but yeah, I wanted more of a narrow look there. And for the cast off of the blouse, I just knit and stockinette into the length that I was happy with for the sleeves and the body. And for the cast off round, I did a cast off in purl stitch. So there's just 1 purl round all the way around. And I actually don't even know what the blouse number 1 light pattern recommends. I assume it is probably a cast off in purl stitch as well, but as soon as I split for the body and sleeve, I didn't reference the pattern anymore. So I actually don't know if that's what the pattern calls for, but it has simple and clean finishing as well. I really like that look, and just I think it looks really clean and finished. Oh, I still have a stitch marker there. I'm gonna take that off after. And I found that I was worried about the body curling a little bit because there's only that 1 round of purl stitches, but after blocking, the body sits quite flat, and so do the sleeves at the bottom. So yeah, really nice finish. I'm really happy with the fit of the blouse. I love the boat neckline. I hadn't done something like this before. I think it looks really elegant. It's a really nice clean finish. The only thing is the pattern says that you need to cast on the stitches at the top very tightly before you start working the short rows for the neckline. And I had never really seen a pattern that specifically says to do that, like cast on how tightly or loosely. And it worked out for me, but it is a little bit tight to get over my head. So I would just recommend that you cast on those stitches and then knit a little bit of the yoke, maybe finish the short rows, and then just make sure it fits over your head because it does fit a little bit tight. And then, like I said, there are short rows to the pattern. I don't know if you can see, but the back of the blouse is raised a little bit more than the front, and that just creates a really high neck. So there is some shaping at the back to help with the front of the blouse from falling too high up over your neck and being a bit uncomfortable, but it is still quite a high fit at the front. It doesn't really bother me, and I don't know if it's I feel like it's maybe because one strand of mohair is so lightweight that I feel like it doesn't really, I don't really feel it at all on my chest. But maybe if you were knitting it with a heavier fabric, like if you were knitting blouse number 1, which I want to say is like a sport weight gauge or light DK, since it's 2 strands of fingering, you might notice that a little bit more across the front of your neck, like the top of your chest. So maybe that might bother you a little bit, but actually I found that the shaping of this neckline is a lot more comfortable than I thought it was going to be, and the short rows do help, even though there's just a few there. I really love a contiguous set-in sleeve construction. I thought it was really easy to knit, relatively speaking. I spoke in my last episode about how I was having trouble with referencing the increases, because there are increase intervals that change up quite a bit for the sizes. But apart from that, I thought it was a pretty simple construction, definitely preferable to seaming on the Ord top, if I'm being honest, to create a similar sheer top look. So I do like the contiguous set-in sleeve. The only thing is, and I think that this is probably my doing because I did size up to a size medium, but I think that the armhole is a little bit too deep on this blouse for me. I feel like you can't really tell when I'm holding it up like this, but when I wear it, I definitely notice that the shoulder and the underarm are quite wide. It's almost like a upside down trapezoid shape, like underneath my arms are like quite wide, and then it starts cinching in on the body. And I think it's probably because I knit the size medium. The top is intended to have negative ease, so it wouldn't really be loose around your bust like that if you had knit the corresponding size for you. At least I don't think it would be. But yeah, because I knit the size medium, I found that it is a little bit bulky, or there's just more fabric here than what I was hoping for. So if I were to knit this again, I'd probably do the increase rates here a little bit quicker. Like there's certain points where you do it every two rows or every 4 rows. I'd probably just do them more frequently, so the end of the contiguous set-in sleeve stops a little bit earlier before you split for the body and sleeve, and then it would have a more comfortable fit. But it's really not that big of a deal. I just wanted to mention it. It wouldn't stop me from wearing this. I still really love it. Like I said, I'm going to wear it tonight. I'd love to know how you would style a sheer long sleeve top like this, because I'm finding it quite challenging, or not challenging, but there's only a certain way that I think I would wear this blouse. So what I'm thinking of wearing this with is I wanted to find a corresponding bra or bralette to wear underneath in the same fiery orange shade, and then I'd probably wear it with high-waisted jeans or high-waisted trousers underneath. And so I didn't have orange bra or bralette, so I ended up taking this yarn to the store, and I was just holding it up against different things, and I actually couldn't find anything in the stores. There's not a lot of, at least at the stores that I was going to, there weren't a lot of bold or bright bras or bralettes. Some of them were like a bright cherry tomato red or a pastel orange, but nothing fiery like this, until I saw this bathing suit top on, it ended up being Old Navy's website actually. This is a bathing suit top, but as you can tell, the orange is, I think, as close to a color match that I could have gotten in all the stores that I went to. So yeah, I ended up getting this top, but I'm really excited to style it with this. It's kind of like a scoop neck, almost like a sports bra-esque bathing suit top. But yeah, I just thought it was funny that I couldn't find a bralette in this shade, but I guess with bathing suits, companies maybe tend to make them in brighter, more bold shades, so I guess maybe that's why I was able to find it. But yeah, I'm excited to style this blouse with this bathing suit bralette underneath with some black trousers. But I'd love to know if there's any other way that you would style it, because I think it's a great lightweight layering piece. I'm thinking of even taking it on my trip as well to Southeast Asia, because it is going to be quite warm there. So I don't know how I feel about wearing mohair, but it is super lightweight and breezy, so I think it could be even pretty cool to wear like lounging around. But yeah, it's really warm there, so I don't know. Okay, and now moving on to whips. So the first one that I want to share is my wave sweater by Spektakelstrik. So I've knit a little bit more of the sweater. I finished the increases and I've split for the body and sleeves, and I've worked quite a bit of the body. You can tell where I blocked the sweater and like did my mid-project block and where I've continued knitting. So I think you could just tell how much blocking really transforms your knits with this sweater. But yes, it's gone back to being very bumpy and uneven now. But for this project, I'm using Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool in the shade Nature's Brown, and then Originally Lovely Fluff in the shade Lapis, which was gifted to me, held with Knit Picks Aloft in the shade Celestial. So again, love working with my Knit Picks Aloft. And I had a little bit of trouble when I was separating for the body and the sleeves. So as I mentioned, this pattern is quite a bit limited, or it's just a little bit more bare bones and simple. You kind of have to do a little bit of thinking, or you just have to have more experience, I think, in sweater knitting to fully understand. With this being my first color work sweater, I have been having challenges with reading the charts and also the pattern. So for the part where you separate for the body and sleeves, the pattern says that you are supposed to cast on stitches to add some more width around the body of your sweater, but you're supposed to cast on these stitches while maintaining the color work motif. But again, they don't exactly say how to do that, so I will maybe do a close-up here to show. How is the best angle to share this? So just before you separate for the sleeves, you have your stitches that you're going to put on the stitch holder for the sleeves. You have your raglan stitches, which is a 2-stitch raglan on the front and the back. And then you have the stitches that you're going to cast on for the body. And the reason why I was having some trouble with figuring out how to do the cast on stitches is because of that 2-stitch raglan. So I ended up doing a long tail cast on for these stitches here. I don't know if you can tell, but right after you cast on stitches, there's a wave motif right there. So I ended up casting on these stitches with a long tail cast on. I cast on the, I think I can say this, I feel like it's quite visual. I cast on the 4 stitches in the brown before I switched to the 3 stitches for the blue, and then back to the 4 stitches for the brown to maintain the color work motif. But what you don't really account for is some of the raglan stitches end up becoming part of that blue in the wave in order to keep the stitch pattern. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to leave it in my Ravelry notes as well, but that was something that I just didn't really think about, and then I couldn't figure out why the stitch count wasn't lining up or why I couldn't maintain the color work motif, and then I realized that the raglan stitches are going to change color in the next round. So yeah, just keep that in mind if you were knitting the wave sweater and you're getting a bit confused at the underarm as I was, or maybe you weren't and it's just a me thing, but I was getting a little bit confused, but I've since figured it out. And then since then, it's been very smooth sailing for the body. I had some issues with the color work chart because it didn't show the raglan increases and how to maintain the pattern, but since there's no more increases anymore and you're just working with a fixed number of stitches, the color work charts make a lot more sense, and so I am on my 3rd wave now. I'm actually thinking of maybe cropping this sweater. So the sweater is quite long. Maybe I'll insert a photo of what the sample looks like. But you knit the last third wave motif all the way before you start working the ribbing. But I'm thinking of actually splitting this wave motif in half, the third one, kind of like how the sleeves look, and just making this a little bit more cropped with a split hem. But we'll see. I haven't fully decided, but I have some more time to think about this because I'm actually thinking of putting this project on hold until the fall of this year. And that's because we're in April now, and probably at the earliest, if I were to dedicate a lot of time to this project, I'd be able to finish it in May. I have a test knit now, which I should be focusing on, so I probably wouldn't end up doing that anyways. So by the time I finish this, it would probably be June, and I am not going to be wearing a worsted weight, basically double layered because there's all the stranded color work on the inside, sweater in June. And so I feel like I won't even really be that excited to finish it, not really excited to be working on it. I won't be wearing it into the fall anyways, so I'm thinking I might just have this as a languishing whip because it's going to be pretty simple. Like the body stitches are fixed and I just follow the stitch pattern. Same with the sleeves as well. Like I already have separated them, so I think it'll be pretty easy. I haven't worked one sleeve yet, so I think that would be another thing. If I had knit one sleeve, I might have forgotten what I had done on the other one, so I haven't done either of them yet. So I feel like I can probably put this as a languishing whip. I just don't really like to have so many whips, like active or non-active whips, because I find that for me, when I have more than, I want to say four or so whips, I tend to get very overwhelmed. It just, to me, like whips, even though you're not working on them, they still take up a lot of mental space. And it's not even the physical space, it's like the mental space in my head that I have more whips that I could be working on, and that, I don't know, it's not really a clean slate anymore once I pick it up again. So that's why I usually don't have any languishing whips. I just try to finish the whip, even though I may or may not be happy with the project, which I guess there's pros and cons to that, or I'll end up just frogging the project. I'm not going to be frogging this colorwork sweater though, but I also don't really want to finish it right now, so I think I'll make an exception because this is a colorwork sweater. It's my first one. I feel like I'll still be excited for it in a few months, and I think that's probably the best decision. So I think this is going to be a little bit of a languishing whip until the fall. I may change my mind, but this may be the last time you see this on the podcast until the fall. And now moving on to my next whip, which was my winter and spring knitting plan. This is the My Honey Vest by Wool and Beyond. So yes, I've had this vest in my mind, in my imagination for several months now, and I'm really happy with how it's turning out. So at my during my last podcast episode, I was knitting the horizontal back panel with double knitting. I finally finished that. Thankfully, that was taking a very, very long time. But yes, I finished with that. And now I am on to the 2-color honeycomb brioche. So the My Honey Vest uses 3 colors, and the saga of choosing colors for the My Honey Vest continues. I don't have my third color here. I'm just gonna look for it. Okay. It was up here. I put it off to the side because I don't need it for a while. It's Mominoki Finnwool in the shade Milk Tea, Plutolopi in the shade Ivory Beige, and then where I've been having a lot of back and forth is what I'm using for the background color. So in my last podcast episode, I had shared that I was thinking of using Artfil Americana in the shade Copper, and that's this right here. And I was thinking of also using Sizzler Git sock yarn in the shade Night Reef, which I think I have here. Yeah, right here. I was thinking of using this and alternating. And then on my Instagram, if you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen that I was sharing on my stories. I was thinking of using some of my purple and pink scraps instead of this, and I would just alternate all my scraps with my copper shade. And I thought that that could be like a cool scrappy vest. And my rationale was because my back panel, Finnwool, and then the Plutolopi, it is a kind of a similar shade. And so I thought that the vest might look a little boring, I guess, if I just used the copper, and it would have too much of a contrast if I used Night Reef. So I thought maybe if I have like little corresponding warm tone shades through my pink and purple and rust scraps, that maybe I could tie it in. But I had started doing the brioche, and I was switching off each row with a scrappy shade, and it just ended up looking really stripy and not like random and whimsical, like kind of the vibe I was looking for. It just looked like stripes of color underneath the brioche, and I thought that that was kind of taking away from the brioche. Like, it was looking busy, and yeah, it just wasn't looking good. So I was thinking I would do like a magic knot ball and then kind of change those colors randomly. But then I tested that as well. I didn't take any pictures, unfortunately. I probably should have, but I already frogged it and I'm onto this, so yeah, it's too late for that. But I tried doing the magic knot and just having random lengths of the scrap yarn with the copper, and I just thought that there's just too many ends to weave in, because a lot of my scraps are superwash yarn, and when I had asked on my Instagram what people thought of the magic knot, people said that with superwash or plant-based yarns, the knots may come undone with time, or when you use superwash or cotton, they just have a tendency to be a bit more slippery and then the knots come apart. And I have no idea how to fix that if it were to come undone in a two-color brioche. So I just thought I'll leave some tail ends and then I'll weave those in instead. But then there's just going to be so many ends to weave in on the vest, probably like over 100. And so I did not want to do that either. So I decided I'm just going to do a two-color version. And my Artfil Americana, actually, maybe I have some of the scraps. I don't have some of the scraps, but maybe I'll insert a photo. They're in the other room and I don't want to grab them. But I do have two different dye lots, and some of them were lighter and some of them were darker. So I feel like I'm going to do the lighter shades up here and then kind of fade to the darker shades at the bottom. And it's not going to be like a very high contrast, but might still make a difference and add some interest. But I decided I'm just going to do the two-color brioche with two colors and not add anything else in and overcomplicate it. And I'm really happy with that. I feel like the honeycomb brioche really stands out. The Plutolopi really shines, and you can still see the copper underneath. And with two-color honeycomb brioche, I feel like the front and the back both look really cool. So I'm really happy with this so far. In terms of the knitting process with two-color honeycomb brioche, I was very intimidated by this vest, and maybe subconsciously that was why I was spending so much time fixated on the colors, because I didn't actually want to cast on the vest because I was so nervous about the brioche because of my experience knitting the honey bucket bag, which I have here because I'm using it to store a project, because I had such a difficult experience knitting this. But honeycomb brioche is so much easier worked with A, two colors, and B, worked flat. And the honey bucket bag is knit with one color honeycomb brioche, and it's knit in the round. So I found that it was really hard to remember what row you were on if you were to put down your project and then pick it up again. It's really hard to tell if you're on the round where you should be knitting stitches together or on the round where you should be slipping stitches. And because honeycomb brioche is a 4-stitch repeat, like that was 2 times as hard because I didn't know if I was on row 1, 2, 3, or 4. So I was always messing up with this. But with this one, I feel like it's very intuitive and obvious what row you should be on. So with two-color honeycomb brioche knit flat, maybe I can try and demonstrate here, but you knit across the right side row first with your background color. So in my case, it's the copper. And then when those all move on to this stitch, after you've worked that, you slide your work back to this needle, and then you're working the background color, which in my case is the Plutolopi in Ivory Beige, across that. And then you turn your work, and then you work your wrong side with your main color, the copper. You finish that, you bring your work back, and then you're knitting the wrong side of your work again with the Plutolopi as your main color. So there's those are your 4 row repeats, and with each row you're working only one of the strands at a time, either your background color or your main color. And so because of that, I feel like it's really easy to tell where you are on your project, where you are with your work. Like for example, I would be on the row where I should be working with the Plutolopi, because if the 2 yarns are on one side and there's both of them here, you would know that you have to work this round because you need to start with your background color. But if they're on opposite ends, that means you haven't worked your main color Plutolopi yet to almost like catch up to the background color. So you alternate between the background color, main color, background color, main color. And so if they're together, you know that you start with your background color. If they're apart, then you know you start with your main color. Hopefully that explanation made sense, but because of that, it's very intuitive, I think, and it's really easy to tell where you are in your work. I haven't made a mistake since I've started this, which I cannot say for my honey bucket bag. I had probably frog back that at least 10 times because I don't know how to fix brioche. So that one was a lot more frustrating. This one is a lot more intuitive. That may come back to bite me though, because I only worked the brioche here flat. I'm about to start working the increases to shape the armholes. I haven't got there yet, so yeah, that may come back to bite me, and I actually may find this really difficult, but so far it's really intuitive and I'm really enjoying the process. And my next width is my Esther Jacket by Petite Knit, which is also a spring knitting plan. So I really wanted to knit a jacket this spring because I really enjoyed wearing my zipper jacket as a light spring jacket last year. So I wanted to knit another one, and I'm using the same yarn combination, just in a different shade. I'm using Knit Picks Wool of the Andes in the shade Almond, which is a 100% Peruvian Highland wool, and I'm holding it with Drops Kid Silk, also in the shade Almond. This one I purchased from Wool Warehouse. So the Esther Jacket, I've mentioned it a few times before. It's a top-down, drop shoulder, all over textured knit jacket, and you cast on stitches for the back panel first, and then the sloping of the back panel to create that comfortable fit along the shoulders is done with increasing. So I don't know if you can tell, but mine is kind of curling a little bit right here. That's because you have to do increases quite frequently, and so I think that the tension here is just kind of tight, but I think it's going to even out with blocking. I've done sweaters in this construction not commonly. Usually I do ones with short rows actually to shape the back, but it should be fine. This should block out. But yes, I just finished knitting the back panel, and with the jacket there's both the written instructions that have the basic instructions for the number of stitches that you cast on, how you do the work, but to reference the textured motif here, that's all done through charts. So I feel like with this pattern, I feel like it is quite like graphic or visually striking, so you can tell kind of what the motif should look like. It's pretty intuitive. I think if you make a mistake, you could tell, because you can see if like the diamonds are not in alignment, or if there's a seed stitch where there shouldn't be. So I feel like it is quite intuitive, but I still have to reference the chart every round, so it's a little bit slow, and it kind of makes me not want to work on this as much because I have all my knitting patterns stored either on my iPad or on my phone, and I just don't really like having to look at the screen every single round. But I think with time I will definitely get used to the stitch pattern, and it will be a lot more easy for me to work on this without having to look at the pattern chart every round. I feel like the front or the right side is you can tell. Where I struggle and I need to look at the chart and like look cell by cell on the chart is at the back. I feel like you can't really tell the stitch pattern, or at least I can't, so I'm always having trouble on this side. With the jacket, it's worked entirely flat. Actually, no, it's not. The back and then the front panels are worked flat, so I still have a lot of work to go, and I think eventually maybe I'll be able to recognize it at the back, but so far, yes. Not as easy as I was expecting. The jacket has a quite relaxed fit. For the smaller sizes, it's intended to have 24 centimeters of positive ease, and then as you increase in size, the positive ease also gradually decreases as well, but overall it's supposed to be a pretty relaxed fit. I haven't figured out exactly what size I'm going to do yet, and I actually have time to do that because the shoulder shaping here, it's all the same for sizes extra small to medium, so I'm debating between knitting a size small, extra small, or extra small. I don't really know because I want this jacket to be a little bit more fitted than 24 centimeters of positive ease. I still want it to be relaxed because I find with a worsted weight fabric gauge, I don't want it to have negative ease. I find that that's a little bit too thick for something so tight. So I still want it to be relaxed, but what I noticed, and it is still a new pattern, so I haven't seen a lot of other examples of the finished jacket pattern yet, but I noticed that on Petite Knit Sample, the sleeves are quite large on the Esther jacket, and I do like the positive ease around the body, but I just don't want so much positive ease around the sleeves. I want that to be a tad fitted, so I'm toying between sizing down in the jacket as a whole and knitting the extra small or extra small even, just to get a tighter sleeve, or if I should just knit the extra small and then just make the armhole a little bit smaller. I still haven't figured that out yet. I still have time because I do knit a section of the back panel just flat until you start working the increases for the armhole. So yeah, I haven't figured that out fully yet, but I still have some time. It's mainly because of the armhole, so we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, and then in my next podcast episode I probably would have gotten to that point, so I'll share an update then. Okay, and my last whip that I have to share is also a new cast on, and it is a test knit. I'm going to be testing the Lakes V-neck pullover by Haley of Osetta. So I am really excited for this test knit because I have test knit all the previous Lakes designs before, the Lakes pullover as well as the Lakes tee. And so when Haley had hinted at this design and put out the test call, I jumped at the chance to apply because I was just really excited to be a part of all of the designs, and you can never have too many Lakes designs in your wardrobe, or at least that's what I'm telling myself. There's probably a point where you may have too many, but I haven't reached that point yet, and I'm really excited for the V-neck fit. I'm wearing my sweater number 14 V-neck today, and I'm excited to have another second V-neck sweater in my wardrobe. I mentioned in my spring knitting trends that V-necks I think are becoming a more popular silhouette, or I'm seeing it a lot in other designs or other upcoming recent designs, so I'm really excited to be testing this. In terms of the yarn, I am using, I'm just gonna put the bag down now, it's too much in my lap. I'm using 3 strands of yarn held together. I'm using Wool Dreamer Sayona in the shade Guthrie, which is a heathered cool toned brown. I feel like it's quite rare to see a heathered cool toned brown like this. I think it's really unique, and the Sayona yarn I've used a few times before. I've actually knit the Lakes tee with this shade as well, and I really like how it looks. I think it's a really nice like chameleon type yarn. It changes in different lights. Like right now I feel like it looks very warm toned brown, but when it's more of an overcast day, I think it kind of looks more gray cool toned. So yeah, I feel like it changes a lot. I really like the heathering, and I'm holding Sayona with Knitting for Olive Dusty Moose, which again is a cool toned brown, and I think it really pairs well with the Sayona, and this yarn was gifted to me for the test knit. So maybe I'll hold a little bit of the swatch here so you can see how the colors work up. So for this design, it uses 3 strands held together, 2 strands of Sayona and 1 strand of the mohair. If you didn't want to use Sayona though, and you wanted to use another yarn, I would say it's like a heavier DK held together with mohair. And the needle size for this pattern is 5.5mm needles, but I always have to size down at least 1 to 2 needle sizes when I'm knitting Ozetta patterns. I find that even then I can meet stitch count gauge, but even with my row count, it's still a little bit off. I still have 2 few rows for every 10 centimeters, so I still have a bit of a larger row gauge. But no matter what I do, like even when I were to change the yarn, change the needle composition between metal or wood, I'm still always off with that. But with Haley's pattern, she always includes measurements as well as the row count, so I think she knows that maybe a lot of people don't achieve gauge with the patterns. That's like feedback that I've left when I've tested for her in the past, and I think others too. It's pretty common. So if you have knit an Ozetta pattern and you've had trouble achieving gauge, I feel like it's maybe like more common, but because there's those helpful measurements in the pattern, it still makes it easy to modify if you need to. So for the construction, the pattern is, I feel like I've been holding it up and moving it around a lot, so it's kind of hard to tell, but the Lakes series has a saddle shoulder design, and it's a different saddle shoulder than how I've worked it before, because you knit the 2 saddle shoulder pieces and then you pick up the stitches for the back and then for the front. In contrast to other saddle shoulders that I've done before where it's all contiguous. So with this construction, you do have quite a few ends to weave in. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm starting to accumulate some at the end of each saddle. So there is quite a few ends to weave in, but it's definitely worth it, I think, because you create a really visually striking saddle shoulder. It sits really wide on the shoulder at the front and the back, and it adds a lot of interest to an otherwise pretty simple stockinette sweater. So as I mentioned, you have the 2 saddle shoulders that you knit, and another bonus of knitting a saddle shoulder like this is this can actually count as your gauge swatch. It's wide enough, it's more than 10 centimeters, so you can knit one of these first and then check your gauge, so that's really helpful. But you knit the 2 saddle shoulders and you leave the stitches live, so you put them on a stitch holder here, and then you break the yarn, and you do that on either side, and then you lay them flat, and there's a schematic in the pattern for how you pick up stitches, but you pick up stitches across one saddle shoulder, you cast on stitches for the back neckline, and then you pick up stitches on the other saddle shoulder, and then you start working short rows to get a slanted fit along the back. My work is kind of curled up now, so I feel like it's hard to tell, but I just finished the short rows for the back. I don't know if you can tell, there's like a bit of a sloped fit along here, and then I'm going to start working the back panel flat now until you start working the increases to shape the underarm. So Haley's patterns are always really fun constructions, and they end up creating a really comfortable fit, and the Lakes pullover is no exception. I'm really happy with how it's working up so far. It's very familiar because I have knit the other 2 Lakes designs before, but if you've knit those and you really like the fit, of course I think you'll really like this design. Or if you haven't knit Lakes pullover before, I think that the v-neck, and you like a v-neck fit, it's a really nice pattern. I'm really happy with how this is working up so far. It's a nice relaxing stockinette project to add to the rotation, which a lot of my whips right now are textured knits, so I'm really just happy to have something very relaxing like this to pick up and go and just work on in the evenings when I'm trying to unwind. I don't know if you could tell by my other whips that I shared, but they're actually all in very similar stages. I'll hold them up now. But we have my honey vest, which I'm working on the back panel. We have my Esther jacket, I'm working on the back panel, just finished the shaping, and then my Lakes pullover, also working on the back panel and just finished the shaping. So yeah, they're all in very similar stages. We'll see which ones I finish first, but this is kind of at the point of the project where I have the most motivation, so hopefully I can chug along and continue to be really motivated to work on all of these projects, and not have them be at the same stage. I do like to have my projects at different stages as well, like working on the collar on one, working on the body on the other, and so it kind of switches up as well in both stitch texture, color, and also what you're working on. So yeah, eventually this one is probably going to make the most progress because it is a test knit, and then the others will follow and catch up. But yeah, they're all at the same stage right now, which is interesting. Don't really do that often. And that was all of my whips, and now moving on to acquisitions, and I'm going to combine my acquisitions and plans together to chat about what I am going to be testing out. So I got a pair of Addi Crazy Trio shorts, and I got these because I am really interested in trying out flexible double pointed needles for knitting socks. So I have some struggles knitting with other types of methods for small circumferences. I'm still trying to figure out one that really just clicks for me and that is portable. Me and magic loop really don't vibe. I get a lot of ladders and it's just not really intuitive to me. It's not an enjoyable process. I don't really feel motivated at all when I'm doing magic loop, so I just don't like doing magic loop. And then with double pointed needles, I really love double pointed needles. I think so far that's my favorite method for knitting in the round. The only challenge is double pointed needles are not very portable. And so I always get a little bit paranoid I'm gonna drop the extra needle, or if you put it in your bag, I use wooden double pointed needles. I'm always worried that I'm gonna break them. So yeah, they're not the most portable, even though I like using them. Small circulars, I use 12-inch small circulars for knitting sleeves, and that is my favorite method. But anything smaller than that, I've tried using the ChowGoo 9-inch circulars or the Addi Sock Wonders, which is a 10-inch cord, and one of the needles is slightly longer, your working needle. But I find that even then, on the 9-inch circulars, definitely I was getting a lot of hand cramping, and I don't really like how with those needles you can only do certain parts of a sock. Like you can knit the leg of the sock and then the foot of the sock, but for the heel and for the toe you have to bring in another method, whether it be the double points or magic loop to finish off those parts of the sock. So I feel like that kind of might slow you down too, because you might be out and about and you might be ready to start that, but you don't have the right tools. So also not really my favorite method. So I always knew that Addi had flexible double pointed needles, but I wasn't familiar with the Crazy Trios. They have, I think they're called the Addi Flexi Flips, and I don't know about you, but I do a lot of research before making a purchase. I look at Google, I search the product on YouTube, I will even search it on Instagram, like I'll search up the company or like the hashtag just to see other people using it. I search on Reddit. I do a lot of research before making a purchase. I don't really know why I do that, but yeah, I just do a lot of research. So I came across there was the Addi Crazy Trios, the Addi Flexi Flips, and then the Haya Sharps, and then, oh no, Haya, sorry, Flyers. And within Haya Flyers, there's different ones as well. There's the Haya Flyers Sharps, there's the steel version, which I haven't used Haya before, but I think they're slightly less sharp of a tip, and I think a different needle material, I want to say. And then there's Haya Flyers bamboo version. So there's many different types of flexible double pointed needles that you can get. I'm sure there's probably a few other brands that I have missed, but those are just the most common ones that I came across. So I was thinking that I would get the Addi Flexi Flips, because the Flexi Flips are the North American equivalent, at least that's what I heard online, of the Crazy Trios. everyone had said that they were the same thing until I came across one reviewer, I'll link them down below, who said that there actually is a little bit of a difference between them. The Addi Crazy Trios have a gold cord here, and then the Flexi Flips have a blue cord. So it's a little bit of a different material. I think Addi uses the two different cords for their different needle types, but she was saying that the Addi Crazy Trio cord is less flexible. It's a little bit more stiff than the Flexi Flips, and so they kind of hold a rounded shape, and it's kind of just up to personal preference what you like working with. So I thought I was going to get the Addi Flexi Flips because they're easier to get, I assumed, in North America, but I don't know what it is. I think it could be just like a GTA issue, supply chain issue, or maybe it's more widespread than that. But there are no size 2.25 millimeter Flexi Flips in the GTA area that I could find, or even in Canada that had relatively reasonable shipping rates. Yeah, there was just no size 2.25 millimeter needles. I checked my local yarn store and other stores in the area, couldn't find it, so I went to Amazon. I usually like to purchase first from a local yarn store, but if not, I'll get it on Amazon. And I saw they had Flexi Flips for around $50 or Crazy Trios for $35, and they would have come 3 weeks earlier. So I wasn't expecting to get these ones because I thought that they would be harder to get here, but for some reason these were the most affordable and also would come the quickest. So long story short, I got the Addi Crazy Trios. I'm really excited to try them out. So I tested them out of the box. I haven't cast on a project with them yet, but I knit a few gauge swatches with different stock yarns that I have, and so far I'm really enjoying the process. I think that this has very high potential to become my favorite way of knitting small circulars. I'm thinking of actually doing like a review series, maybe. If I really enjoy knitting a pair of socks on these, I might try the other Addi Flexi Flips and compare for myself how they compare to these ones, and the Haya line. But yeah, we'll see if I like these first before I end up getting all of those. But I kind of want to do a little review series on my channel on them, because I feel like that these are maybe a less common method for knitting small circulars, so I'd love to put my 2 cents in and give my thoughts on them. But yeah, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. So the needles come out and they have a little bit of a rounded shape, and when I was testing it out, I found that the needles, because they were curved, the non-working needle at the bottom would bang together with the other one on the other side. So maybe bang is like a bit of an exaggeration, but there was like a little clink noise every time I would knit a stitch, and I personally didn't mind that, but I tend to knit a lot in public spaces, and so I feel like that would be a little bit distracting to other people, so I just thought it was a little bit noisy. So what I had did was I ended up putting the needle cord under some very hot water. I boiled some water, I poured it in a cup, and then I dunked the Crazy Trios in, and then that makes the cord a lot more malleable. And then I straightened out the cord, and then I taped it down to my table for a few hours, and then after that they ended up becoming a lot straighter. I'll put a photo maybe here showing, if I haven't already, what they look like before and then what they look like after I reshaped them with the boiling water, and then yeah, tape them down. I don't know if the taping down really made much of a difference at all, but to me, I thought that when they cool, they'll like cool in this shape. And yeah, now they're a lot more straight. And I'm hoping that that kind of solves that issue, where now when you're knitting, the needles point out so they won't be as noisy. But I am excited to test them out. I am thinking of, this is where I'm going to combine my plans section and tell you what my next cast on is. I'm thinking of knitting the Humlebi socks by Fiber Tales as my second sock pattern. I really like the flower and bumblebee motif. I feel like it's really spring-like, and for my second sock I wanted to try knitting something toe up to see how I enjoy that construction. And so 2.25 millimeter needles, fingering weight yarn, I should be able to knit the Humlebi socks, pending that I achieve gauge. I hope I do, because these are the only flexi flips or the only Crazy Trios size that I have. So I'm really hoping that I achieve gauge. I think I will be able to. But yeah, I'm planning to knit those, and I'm going to try these needles out, and hopefully I enjoy how they work. I actually am not going to store them in this box anymore. I'm still going to keep it here for reference, but how I've been storing them since I straightened them out with the hot water is I've been storing them in a bubble tea straw. I was looking at how the flexi flips were stored, and they're also stored in this clear tube. So I just took a bubble tea straw and then I taped the bottom, and then I've just been storing them in here so they can stay as straight as possible, and it's been working well so far. So that was everything for podcast episode number 9. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much if you've reached this point in the video. I really appreciate all the support. I was looking at my analytics the other day, and I actually noted something really interesting about viewership, or it was interesting to me. About half the people, or over half the people that watch my videos aren't subscribed. I would say the average across my past 4 or 5 videos was 60% of people weren't subscribed, but almost 90% were returning viewers, so people that had clicked on my video before and watched. So I thought it was really interesting, and I just wanted to set a little reminder. And I feel like it's quite obvious, but I just wanted to say right now that if you do like my channel, I would love if you would subscribe and stick around. By subscribing, my videos will go into your notifications or in your subscription box, so you can keep coming back and keep watching my videos and interacting. I love the community. I love all the helpful advice that I've gotten from so many of you in all of my videos. It really helps with a lot of my projects, and just creating and making just brings me a lot of joy, and I really like creating these videos. And so yeah, if you like my content, if you've gotten to this point of the video and you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love if you would subscribe and stick around. And I feel like that's enough promotion now. I'll stop giving my spiel. I just thought it was interesting and I wanted to just mention it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching and for listening to all my nerdy ramblings about flexible double pointed needles, sharing all of my whips, and I will see you in my next video.